This week, the early frontrunners in the 2024 presidential race suffered some potential setbacks. Former President Donald Trump was found liable by a New York jury for the sexual abuse of writer E. Jean Carroll and defaming her online.
On the Democratic side, President Joe Biden is under scrutiny from House Republicans who claim they have evidence that members of the Biden's family received millions in payments from foreign entities. The White House says there are no policies that show Biden was influenced.
Our political panel is back with us now. Democratic strategist Alexis Wiley and Republican strategist Jason Cabel Roe. Thanks again for both of you being here. Let's zoom out and look at 2024. It's still early. For your average American, it may even be too early, but it's starting to feel like deja vu. It's looking like a rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Do you think that's what we're headed into, or are some serious contenders from either side going to step forward?
So I think on the Democratic side, it's going to be President Biden. I think that everyone's lining up. I think there is strong support. I think on the Republican side, it will be really interesting to see what DeSantis does and whether he's able to kind of pull his coalition back together and not just be known as the guy who hates Disneyland, right? But I think that there's a lot of things that can still shake out. It's still very early, but I believe that the president's team is pulling it together, and I think that he'll be president again.
Is your concern, Jason, that what has transpired with Trump over the last few years, you look at what happened during the presidency, lots of controversy, and then you look what's happened since, the civil trial, found liable, and then he goes on CNN the other day, and he's doubling down on the insurrection, and everything else happened with the election being robbed, he claims.
Well, I think one of the benefits of the CNN town hall, and I know CNN's taken a lot of criticism for giving him the platform, thinking that he kind of owned the evening. But, for me, I realized when watching it that he has benefited from not having that kind of exposure for the last year or two. And what we got to see in the CNN town hall was a reminder of what Donald Trump is like. And it's not very attractive in terms of trying to govern a nation that's pretty divided right now. So I actually think for folks that don't want to see Donald Trump return to the White House, I actually think that that was a good thing to happen. I do think it's 10 months before the first election contest in determining who the nominees are going to be. Ron DeSantis hasn't even announced, and certainly he's been, poll numbers have moved a little bit in Trump's favor, but that's because Trump's actually out there. And regardless of what you think of Trump, the Alvin Bragg Manhattan DA indictment gave him a ton of exposure once again. This rape trial gave him more exposure, and with Trump, unfortunately or fortunately for him, as long as his name is in the news, everybody's talking about him, and it crowds out some of the other candidates. I do think that DeSantis is better equipped because of his record, because of his position, and he's a candidate that can raise the hundreds of millions of dollars to compete with Trump that the others can't. And the reality is, ads run against Donald Trump in 2020 and 2016 lacked a lot of the substance of the lines of attack that are available to a candidate in 2024. So I think he's a little more vulnerable than polls would suggest right now.
Well, we can't expect him to stay in the spotlight, particularly the fact that he's under investigation. He's at the center of several probes at this point. A trial could begin before this election really gets underway. So do you think there's a chance for anyone else to be exposed as much as Trump? What's DeSantis waiting for?
Well, and he said from the beginning he was waiting for the Florida legislative session to end. He was going to do his job as governor. It's ended, so you have to assume that an announcement is imminent. We haven't really seen them on a stage together. We haven't really seen him on the stump in a meaningful way. And, he won by 20 points, and he netted out 5 new members of Congress in the Florida delegation, which is the majority in the House of Representatives. And so at some point, do Republican voters look at Trump and say, is he worth all the hassle? Is this the guy we got to settle for? Or do we pivot to this guy who embodies a lot of the policy positions that we care about, but actually can govern and doesn't carry all the baggage that Donald Trump does?
And Alexis, when you look at Biden's situation, okay, he has a couple strikes against him when you talk about age, and some of the polls out there have people concerned about his age, and then you factor in the Hunter Biden stories and everything else going on, that maybe he accepted money, at least according to the GOP. They think he accepted money from outside entities, I believe in China and Romania. How much has that hurt Biden?
You know, I think most people, again, are focused on the issues that keep them up at night, right? The things about, you know, can we get access to good paying jobs? Are my kids safe, right? What are we doing about gun violence? All of these issues are so much more important than the rest of those other things that I think some people, the politicos, are talking about. And I think at the end of the day, people are going to judge how President Biden has done on those core issues that we talk about at the kitchen table. I think he has done extraordinary with that, and I think he's going to come out and really have a message to the American people about really how do we really continue the success, continue moving out of COVID and create more jobs, bring our supply chain back to the U.S., making sure that we're creating opportunities and going after gun violence in a meaningful way. We are dealing with so much violence in our communities, and it's touching so many lives that everybody is focused on that, and I think that you're going to see action there, and people will come out and support him.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here today and discussing. We want to thank our panel. This is Democratic strategist Alexis Wiley and Republican strategist Jason Cabel Roe. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.